chair is in fact against the wall, and John has a long mustache. We're done messing around.
Well, you're a real tough cookie with a long history, breaking little hearts like the one in me. That's okay, let's see how you do it. Put up your dukes, let's get down to it.
Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Ivil Say, Orway Update. Today I am coming at you from my cabin down by the creek. So I want to talk about the perfect storm of 2021. Many of you know that I predicted a lot of the events of 2020. I may have been off on the timing. I usually think things happen quicker because I'm kind of a quick to the point, decision-making kind of person. You've probably witnessed that in my travels since I've had this channel. But I've typically been right. For instance, if you go back and look at my video I made for New Year's 2019, it's titled certain number of things, 10 things that will happen in 2019 and 10 things that might happen in 2019. And I was off. All those things happened. They just happened in 2020, you know. And they will continue probably happening into 2021, some of those predictions I made in 2019. So this perfect storm of 2021, it may take till 2022 to completely roll out. But here's what I'm seeing will happen, and why I think there is a perfect storm brewing that could lead to some insanity right around the time of the presidential inauguration. And I think we could all easily predict that at this point, that something's going down. It's just we don't know what. But I want to talk to you about how around that same time frame, several things are going to happen at once that's going to trigger a leftist uprising that made last summer look tame. Make last summer look like the block party that the mayor of Seattle claimed they were having there in the Chaz zone. That level of uprising we experienced last summer will be a drop in the bucket, because it's going to be more organized, wider spread, and involving agencies within our own government. Don't. That what we're seeing literally is a bloody battle. Hadn't turned bloody yet, but hang in there. It probably will. But a vicious battle for control of our country. And honestly, as far as I'm concerned, it's about freaking time. Like, we should have done something already. You know, I think Trump drug his feet, and you know he had certain economic axes to grind. He had a first term agenda. And a lot of stuff we wanted him to do, he was saving for the second term. So the first thing that could really set things off is if Donald Trump wins re-election. And I know you're thinking, Trump, Sage, did you make this video before the election or something? Because the AP called it for Biden. Well, the AP stands for Associated Press. The Associated Press does not decide presidential races. CNN called it. Even Fox called it. Well, Foxes don't run our country. Cable news networks don't run our country, people. But, I'm preaching to the choir. You understand that there's a constitutional method for running for president and succeeding and ascending to that office. And right now, the election is still going. Numbers change daily. They haven't stopped counting. And in places where they have stopped counting, there is an effort to force them to continue counting. And then there's an option for someone who feels like there is inequities in the process. If one of the candidates decides they've been gypped, okay, they've been ripped off, then they can contest the election. And the reason we haven't seen this is because most of the time, the process for which we've elected presidents, and all races, for that matter, all political races, the reason that we have not seen this in the past is because typically the win is pretty clear-cut and clean, and it happens pretty fast the night of. But because of COVID, right, they changed the rules, but I think it was just an excuse to change the rules in their favor. And what we've seen here is election tampering. I won't use the F word, but election tampering on a level here that's unprecedented in American history. That not even the election of JFK, which was said to have been engineered by the mafia and the unions, even that election wasn't as crooked as the one that just happened. And they did it in broad daylight. So we can talk about the election and all this stuff. I'm going to let it play out. And I'm just going to predict to you that when the smoke clears on January 20th, it'll be Trump with his hand on the Bible, not Biden. Can you imagine that slimy sucker putting his hand on the Bible? They'd have to slip a Playboy in between his hand and the Bible so it didn't set his hand on fire. I'm a little bit too Catholic sometimes. I think they ought to spray these people with holy water before they put them up there. And if it starts burning them, we know not to put them in office. Oh, Lord help us. So I do believe that there was significant cheating, and it was widespread, and it was organized. And I believe that, I'm not one of these people that believe that the ballots are watermarked or anything like that. I've seen too many ballots that the state and county, whatever, they make up the ballots. So it's the counting process that I think where the evidence lies. The evidence of these irregularities. I won't even call them irregularities. Let's get real. It's election tampering. Okay? And I believe, my prediction is that when the smoke clears, because here's the thing. If you think you can get away with it and, you're politically empowered and politically on fire enough to think like any means necessary, by any means necessary. If you're one of those kind of by any means necessary people, and just so that you know, one of the biggest Google searches right before the election was, what is the penalty for getting caught in election fraud or election tampering? And so there's a lot of people on the local political scale that are so full of anti-Trump hatred that they decided to cheat. A bunch of them cheated. And when pressure gets put on some of these people, when the truth comes out, because this cheating is traceable, okay? We keep a pretty good record of this stuff. I won't even get into Dominion. This is not really an election video. This is just to explain to you that the AP doesn't pick our presidents, and cable news networks do not pick our presidents, okay? There's a process, and when the process is done, we'll see who the president is, and they can't call themselves president-elect until the electors have elected them. We have an election on November 4th, but they don't elect president, really. They elect electors, and then the electors go to Washington and cast their vote on behalf of their districts. So until that happens, there is no president-elect. And we've gotten spoiled in times past because people, they give up the race, right? And they, admit defeat. And there is no confrontation, for whatever reasons in the past. But now there is a challenge to the election. And so Trump did not quit. He did not quit his run for presidency. It is still on, okay? And the proverbial obese opera singer has not yet performed, okay? So this thing ain't over. But when it is, I'm confident that Trump will be found to have won the election when all the legal votes are counted and all the illegal votes are discarded. I could do a whole video on the election, but that's what other people are doing right now. They've got it covered. I think it's well talked about if you're plugged into the right. If you're watching this channel, you probably know all about it anyway. But let's move on to what else is going to cause the perfect storm in 2021. So I'm looking over here because I made some notes. The overcharged cops go free. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about these police officers in various cases across the country over the summer and in the spring that engaged in some of these videotaped killings, right? And or accidental deaths, suspicious deaths of African American men and women, both armed and unarmed, right, in various circumstances. So there was this huge uproar against this police brutality. Everybody was trying to, calm down the BLM folks. They burned the cities anyway, and half of the Pacific Northwest, them and Antifa working together. And, the arson is off the charts, the millions and millions of dollars of damages to our state and local economies from this lawlessness, right? All this happened because of a few of these cases, like what happened in Wisconsin, and what happened in Minneapolis, and what happened in, you could just go on and on. The Minneapolis and Kenosha ones, I think, were the worst rioting as far as just like total destruction of an area that really couldn't afford total destruction. But there were whole neighborhoods burned in Detroit. I mean, I'm sure I'm leaving some cities out where all this stuff happened. And the thing is that these cops got charged heavily for their part in these deaths. Many of them, in certain situations, especially in the big one with the George Floyd case, this cop was charged with first-degree murder. I believe he was charged with first-degree murder or second-degree murder. I don't know. I believe in all of these cases, to try to placate people and to calm things down, that prosecutors overcharge these cops with charges that cannot stick. And in most cases, in most jurisdictions, once you're trying somebody for a charge, you can't then try them for a lesser charge. You're not given that as a juror. You're not given, are they guilty of first-degree murder or just manslaughter or negligence? You don't get to decide that. They decide what they're going to prosecute them on, and then you say yay or nay. Yes, they committed this crime, or no, they did not commit this crime. That their crime did not reach this level of murder doesn't mean they didn't commit a crime. It just meant they didn't commit a crime to that degree. Making sense to you now? That what's going to happen is that because these people are overcharged, either it's going to be a combination of some of the DAs changing the charges now that time has passed before the actual prosecution takes place, or you'll see these people actually get no-billed by grand juries or freed completely by juries of their peers because their involvement in the death did not reach the level that they're being charged for. So it will appear that several of these police officers are going to walk away scot-free. When that starts happening, when cops start getting turned loose and their charges dropped and, trials going in favor of the police and against the charges, because they're overcharged, you understand. I'm not saying that I want this to happen necessarily. I'm just saying that mistakes have been made and it's too late to fix them. So there's an expectation that these police officers are going to be held heavily accountable for what they've done, when in fact they're going to get the same justice system that most of your criminals get, that go in and out in the same day in the revolving door justice system. So I think that's going to trigger a leftist uprising. That's going to make the riots that come from that. If this all happens around the same time at the first of the year, it seems to me, I haven't looked at the dockets on these individual cases, so I'm basing this on, it's about time for these cases to start rolling around. The wheels of justice turn slowly, but they do turn, and they turn reliably. And so eventually these cases are going to come to a head with these police officers. And I think it's going to go in the favor of the cops for the most part. They just don't have a case. They just don't have a case in many of these instances. In many of these instances, it's a clear-cut case. Another one that's a controversial case is the Kenosha kid. So you got this barely, was he even 18? I think he was not even 18, a 17-year-old who defends himself against the mob who's trying to bash his brains in. And now he's being tried for, once again, I think they're trying him for first-degree murder in Wisconsin. They've extradited him now from his home state of I believe, Illinois, and whatever that neighboring state is over there. I don't know that area very well, but they're sending him back, took him back to Wisconsin. And hello to my Wisconsin viewers. You probably know more about this than I do. But at any rate, I think he's been overcharged. I think that there's no way they're going to make their case stick. The jury's going to take one look at this video. If they let them see the video, they're going to take one look at it and go, well, heck, the only question is, how come he fired so few rounds? Like, I would have turned around at this mob that was following me, and I would have done Schwarzenegger on all of them. I would have just went straight up Rambo. You know what I mean? I would have been smoking a cigar saying, I'll be back. I mean, they would have got the action hero treatment if they was chasing me. So I think if a jury sees that, they're going to put themselves in the shoes of the Kenosha kid and say, what would I do? Would I just let them bash my brains in and take my rifle away? You know, they're going to say he made mistakes. He's probably guilty of something much smaller than what they're charging him with. But like I explained earlier in the police trials, this is not how the system works. They're going to try to stick him to the wall with everything they can get, and they're going to fail because, there's no evidence that he was guilty on that level, and they're going to try to smear him. All this stuff is going to come to head probably about the same time that the courts and everything sifts out on the election meddling, and we find out that Donald Trump's going to be president. So that gives them double reason, triple reason to start having a meltdown. What is the number 3 thing that can happen that might cause a massive leftist uprising in 2021? That might just kick this thing off? High-level Democrats are going to go to prison for election tampering. I think it's fairly clear to me that crimes have been committed. We've got affidavits. We have signed testimonies. We have eyewitnesses who claim everything from being barred from viewing as a voter observer. What is an election observer? Election observers being turned away from the counting rooms. Okay, I believe that's a criminal violation of your civil rights. These are laws. They're not suggestions. They're not rules to some game that you can change as you go. When these people break these rules, they're really breaking election laws, and each state handles it differently. Also, I think when they shake out and follow the money on this Dominion voting count software that was used in all of the battleground states, and we've seen as many as 60,000 votes, or might have been 6,000 votes, that we know of in just one instance that was accidentally flipped from Trump to Biden and then caught and flipped back to Trump. But nonetheless, the dubious nature of the origin of this software is beyond suspicious. It stinks of criminal conspiracy that leads right back to guess who? The Enclaves. And I'm sure there's going to be connection there with Orway as well. So if you know this channel, you know who I'm talking about when I say Enclave. But at any rate, or is it Linton K? I don't know. You decide. But the bottom line is, I think high-level Democrats, I think these lower-level Democrat operatives that are doing this on the street level are going to get caught, and they're going to start rolling over on their people over them to avoid going to prison. And it's just going to go up the food chain till we get, I don't know how high we get before they call it a day. But I do believe there's going to be some arrests related directly to interference in this election. And I think that's why Bill Barr announced he was doing a criminal investigation into some of these issues with the election. And some folks are going to jail, and they're going to start singing, and they're going to start narking out their buddies because, that's what criminals do. And we're going to have some arrests and some prosecutions. And all this could happen around Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, But once again, it might not happen till the summer. It just depends on a lot of things. Do I think Biden's going to shake out and win this in the end? I don't think so. I think there's just too many things wrong with the election. I think the only way that happens is if we have a new election and we do it different. Or they have, recall elections in these battleground states, right? And even then, does that mean we go back on the election campaign trail and we start campaigning again in these states? Should it be illegal for them to campaign? Should we just stop it where it is? You go back and repeat the vote you voted? Just tell people vote like you voted. you know. But it's clear to me that there's enough shenanigans, if you want to. I hate to call it shenanigans. It's criminal behavior going on in this election. Don't even get me started on the propaganda stream. The AP and CNN do not decide elections. They are peeing on your head and telling you it's raining outside. You understand? Just stick your tongue out. You can taste it. It's urine. Okay, you're being weed upon, my friends. So, um, those three things alone would be enough to kick off a major conflagration early in the year of 2021. This is how I think it'll go down. I have a whole nother set of predictions if I'm wrong about the Trump thing. Because if I'm wrong about the Trump thing, these other things are still going to happen. Overcharged cops are still going to go free. High-level Democrats probably will not get arrested and go to prison. And obviously there won't be protests against the Donald Trump reelection. But then there will be gun grabs because Biden's going to put Beto in charge of snatching our rifles. And we ain't having that. We all know that, you know. As Johnny B says, out of my cold, dead hands. Right? um, I wrote a song, You Can Have My Guns Over Your Dead Body. That's how I feel about it. I ain't trying to give my life for my country. I'm trying to make the other guy give his life for his country. Patton, he said that. So, yeah, these three things could happen. If Biden somehow sneaks in there, then we got a whole nother set of woes. And it may take a little longer to roll out because he isn't going to start on day one with us. But I did make some predictions about how you can't make a major military-backed kind of coup without first going into the Pentagon and ejecting everybody from leadership who isn't on your side, like in a mass purge. And so I do think that Trump maybe even has a plan C about staying in office because he has purged everybody from the Pentagon that might come to try to rout him out if he decides to contest this, and they want to follow through with their threats of extracting him from the White House with force using the military. Then Trump may be hedging his bets against that by going in and replacing all of the Pentagon people who are not on his side, replacing them with loyalists who are loyal to him, his cause, and what he's trying to do in draining the swamp. So we've got some real interesting stuff stirred up. Brennan, hate that guy with a passion. I mean, seriously, if a guy, I want to say curses about him in all the ways that he should perish, but I understand I'm just not supposed to do that. So, only one who knows how I truly feel is Radar. I don't even think they can listen to me out here when I yell into the wind about how frustrated I am with people like Brennan, who is the former CIA head, who is saying that because Trump is firing people and because Trump is going in and replacing people in the Pentagon with his loyalists, that makes him dangerous and a threat to society, and therefore his cabinet members, his own cabinet members, should turn on him and invoke the 25th Amendment and remove him from office now before he can do any more damage. And I think it's just because Brennan understands that if Trump gets a second term, he's going to spend most of that time routing out you fellas and putting shackles on you and throwing you under the prison. Brennan, you understand that if you had anything to do with the spying of the Trump campaign, that if he gets reelected, you're going to prison, Mr. Brennan. You're going to prison for your role, and anybody else who played a role in that illegal wiretapping. It's not wires anymore. Everything's wireless, right? But the criminal surveillance of political opponent. And, certain high-level people like Obama and Clinton might go down with you, Mr. Brennan. So I can understand why you'd be basically crapping your pants right now and be wanting to remove Trump before he can do anything like this and get Biden in there as soon as possible. Because he could still just arrest a bunch of people right now. I mean, the arrest powers of the president are pretty much unlimited. Now, prosecutions have to go according to the Constitution, but I think the president can pretty much pick up whoever he wants to, as long as he's willing to deal with the political, repercussions from such a thing. So maybe Brennan's afraid that Trump's going to snatch him off the street right now. List of things that Better be glad old Sage isn't president because I would be borderline dictator. I would not be taking crap from people like Brennan. If I were president, I would be disappearing some people. But that's me. I would probably be a little bit of a dictator. It's my way or the highway. Just ask anybody who's ever tried to live with me or be in a band with me. Jimmy, don't you say a word. Don't you? Actually, I had a few songwriting buddies like Jimmy. You know who you are. Who it was the tension between us and the disagreement musically and lyrically between us that created some really great music. So sometimes conflict can cause creativity. But no, Jimmy's one of my oldest, dearest friends. I did come out of this world with a few friends. So at any rate, I do believe that crap's going to hit the fan, but we all knew that. The big question is, which way is the poop going to fly? How much of it is there going to be? And who's the one going to be flinging it? And am I supposed to fling back, or do I just need to hide under a rock till the poo-poo storm is over? You probably never heard somebody take the SHTF scenario and get so literal with it. But something stinks. Something stinks to high heaven around here from this election. You know what they say at the drug company? If your election lasts for more than 4 to 6 weeks, consult a physician. I'm being swarmed by flies. It warmed up today. All right. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Is any of this stuff going to come true? Is this how it's going to go down? Do you think Trump's got a chance in Hades of pulling this thing out? You let me know in the comment section. In a couple of months, we'll know for sure. God save our republic.